Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion Remastered. My name is Camel, and today I'm going to show you an old classic, how to get permanent bound armor and weapons. Yes, that's right, glowing Daedric weapons and armor forever. We will be getting the bound axe, bow, dagger, mace, sword, boots, cuirass, gauntlets, greaves, helmet, and shield. Most of these can be obtained at any level, and on top of that, most of these are completely free. And the cherry on top is they are all entirely weightless. That's right, they've got a weight of 0. Now, while most of this is pretty straightforward, and despite knowing about this for years, I found ironing out some of the minutiae rather vexing. So I've done my very best to bring you some new tricks and brand new stat comparison info that I couldn't find anywhere else, as so that this whole process is easier for you, or at the very least you just know the nitty-gritty of what you're dealing with here. Because it turns out once you dig around a bit, these items have some strange hidden values, making them maybe not as good as they seem, but also in some cases a lot better than they seem. Now, timestamps can be found down in the description if you're looking for something specific. And if you are into these kind of videos, check out the Oblivion Remastered playlist down below. And while you're down there, check out my social media links and the merch store, where you can get your hands on all kinds of cool loot, like this Camel Constellation Elder Scroll blanket. Keeps you warm and up to date with Elder Scrolls knowledge. But for now, without further hesitation, let's get kitted up and ready to roll into Oblivion looking like something that should be worshipped. So the first thing we're going to want to do is make sure that we have 20 or so repair hammers at hand before starting our journey. If you don't have enough, or you just run out at some point, just head to any smith in any of the cities and purchase them. They're not that expensive, yet they are absolutely vital for the tomfoolery that we're about to get up to. Now, once you're hammered and ready to mend, it's time to get all of our free gear. You have probably seen these stones littered around Cyrodiil. There are a few different types, one of which are Rune Stones, of which there are 3 variations: Hestra Rune Stones, Reman Rune Stones, and Sidri-Ashak Rune Stones. We are going to need to find one of each. Now, these runestones are unmarked on the map, so I have made this map with all of their locations and a key so you know which is which. Now, I will post this map on Twitter so that you can access it in high resolution if you feel so inclined to check it out. But fear not, you don't actually need it, as I'm going to show you how to find all of the runestones we need, specifically the ones closest to the Imperial City, just to make it as easy as possible. So in no particular order, we will want to head to this location at the blue map marker, just to the northwest of the Imperial City. Here we can find our Hestra runestone. What we want to do is click on it. The stone stirs under your hand. Do you seek its conjured weapon and armor? Yes. This will give us bound gauntlets, and a bound dagger or a bound mace. It's important to note that if your blade skill is higher than your blunt skill, you'll get a dagger, and if your blunt skill is higher than your blade skill, you'll get a mace. However, I will show you 2 ways to get both later on, so fret not. Now, these bound items will last for 5 minutes. Within that time, we need to head out and find something to fight so it can damage the durability of our bound gauntlets, and we can damage the durability of our bound weapon by attacking them. I just went northeast from this runestone and found a fort littered with invisible bears. Don't know what's going on there, but I'll look into that mystery in another video, I guess. But what's important for right now is to just stand there and take some hits. We want the bound gauntlets to suffer some durability loss. Also, a pro tip I hadn't figured out yet while I was getting this footage: when you're trying to damage the bound armor, just take everything else off to ensure the piece you are working with gets the full brunt of whatever it is you're throwing at it. So once you've taken a slapping, use the bound dagger / bound mace as well, so that it too loses some durability. And while 5 minutes might seem like a long time, best be quick about it. So if done correctly, we will see that our bound gauntlets have lost some durability, and so too has our bound dagger. Now what we need to do is go to our MISC tab and to the repair hammers. Then just repair the bound items to full durability. Now, it is worth noting that you cannot repair items while enemies are nearby, so you will have to be sure to clear everything out before going for the patch up. But once they have been repaired back to full health, well, the game spazzes out a little bit, as we can now for some reason drop our bound items, which is something you cannot normally do. So we'll need to go ahead and drop them onto the ground. Now, this is important. Before picking them back up, we must wait for the Bound Gauntlet and Bound Dagger effect to wear off. We can either go to our active effects, or we can just look into the bottom left corner of the screen for the active effect icons and their little timer bars as well. So in the meantime, while you wait, you can jump around and get your acrobatic skill up, or you can go make a cup of Sujama. It's up to you. Eventually, once the Bound Weapon Armor magical effect wears off your character, it's safe. We can pick up our bound items off the ground, which are now, for whatever reason, permanently bound to the mortal realm of Mundus. They will not be returning to Oblivion ever again, unless we take them there, of course. Now, these newly immortalized bound items will act just like normal items that we can carry with us for the rest of the game. And that, my friend, is the trick to getting permanent bound items. You've learnt it. So now we have those, we will need to go and find our Reman Rune Stone. This can be found right here on the map at the blue marker, just to the west of the Imperial City. Once here, we want to click on the Reman Runestone. This will give us the bound Cuirass and the bound sword, or if your blunt skill is higher than your blade skill, you'll get the bound axe. Either way, again, I'll show you how to get both later on anyway. So for right now, in the name of Reman, you can Remanlax. Now, just as before, this will last for 5 minutes, so we need to go and find something to damage our bound items. I just legged it into the woods and found a bear who did just the job. Take a few hits, then deliver some of your own, get some cracks in those bound items, take out all the enemies nearby, repair the freshly damaged bound items, drop them on the ground, wait for the bound effect from the runestone to wear off. While you wait, do something productive like subscribe, or give a bear a kiss with the barnacle. Once the magical effect wears off, we can pick up our items and my eek's your uncle. They are all yours forever. Now for the final of the 3 runestones, we'll need to find ourselves a Sidri-Ashak runestone. I'm sure I'm pronouncing that wrong. There's probably some cool fantasy way of saying it, like Sidri-Ashak, but potato potato. The easiest one to get is right here at the blue map marker, just to the south of the Imperial City. Once here, click it, opt into the terms and conditions, and this will give us the bound helmet and bound bow. As before, we need to damage them. I swam just north across the water where there were some goblins stinging to take a swing at the hero of Kavach. So go ahead, take some hits, and use that bow to damage it. Once that's done and all the enemies have been dealt with, repair the bound items, drop them onto the ground, wait for the effect to wear off, then pick up your brand new permanent bound helmet and bound bow. Now, as promised earlier, if you get the bound dagger and bound sword and didn't get the bound axe and bound mace or vice versa, the easiest thing to do is simply increase the skill level of your blade/blunt, depending on which is lower, as the higher of the 2 skills will determine which weapons you get from the runestones. The fastest way to do this is to head to the Shrine of Periite, which can be found right here on the map. It's the same place we visited in my guide to quickly level all skills in the game. I will reference that video a few times in this one, so check it out above if you haven't already, as there's a fair chunk of information in that we'll be using in this. Anyway, once here, we will notice that all of these worshippers are just standing around. This is for quest-related reasons. They are all in a trance or something of the sort, but as far as the game is concerned, they are all unconscious and unkillable, which makes them the perfect punching bags to quickly level our combat skills. In my case, my blade skill is level 29, but my blunt skill is level 22. So I need to grab a blunt weapon, start swinging away until my blunt skill is higher than my blade skill. Although this isn't technically correct, as if both your blade skill and your blunt skill are exactly the same level, when you activate one of these runestones, you will always acquire a blunt weapon. I don't know why if they're the same level, blunt supersedes blade for some reason. So really, I only need to get my blunt skill to 29. So once that is done, simply head back to the runestones that I showed you earlier, or you can, again, check out this map and pick whichever ones you want. Maybe you're standing next to one of them, I don't know. Click on it to get more bound armor, and instead of getting the bladed weapon, you will get the blunt weapon option. Then it's just the same as before. Damage the item, repair the item, drop the item, wait for the effect to wear off, then pick it up. It's as simple as Starfield's storylines. So there you have how to get all of the free bound items permanently, but we're still missing the bound shield, the bound greaves, and the bound boots. And if you want all of those, well, there's a little bit of a journey ahead, as here is where we'll need some skills and some gold. But you can get all of the bound items this way. So if you're not into the blade/blunt trick I just explained, this is what you will want to do as well. We will need to head to the city of Coral. Once here, we'll need to make our way to the Mage's Guild. Inside, there are 2 merchants that will need to buy the remaining spells off of. Once inside, if you are not already a member of the Mages Guild, you will need to speak to Tikius. He's hard to miss. Simply click Joining the Mages Guild, then click Yes, I want to join the Mages Guild. Once that is done, we will need to find and speak to Athragar. Select Purchasing Spells. He will sell the Bound Cuirass, the Bound Shield, the Bound Bow, the Bound Mace, and the Bound Sword. I bought them all so I can just cast them whenever I need to, if I need to, but of course you just buy whichever bound items you are missing. And if you want the full list, well, you better buy the Bound Shield as it's the only way to get it. Then, still within the Coral Mages Guild, we need to find and speak with Alberic Litte and select Purchasing Spells. He will sell the Bound Boots, Bound Gauntlets, Bound Greaves, Bound Helmet, Bound War Axe, and Bound Dagger. Buy whichever ones you need, buy whichever ones you want. But if you want the full set, you will have to buy the Bound Boots and the Bound Greaves, as this is the only way to get them. Now the Bound Boots you can cast at any conjuration level. However, the Bound Greaves, you will need a conjuration skill of 25 or higher to cast it. And the real kicker, the Bound Shield will require a conjuration skill of 75 or higher to cast. Now if you're not at that level yet and you want these bound items, but your conjuration skill isn't up to snuff, well again I will reference you to the fast skill leveling guide above. Click the little eye in the top right of the screen, it'll be there. So now we have these spells for the remaining bound items, and all we need to do is do as we did before, but now instead of using a rune stone, we need to actually cast the spells ourselves. Then the same as before, we need to damage the item's durability, repair it, drop it on the ground, wait for the effect to wear off, and then pick it up. Now as simple as it sounds, this is a little bit harder than before, as these bound item spells have much shorter durations, most of which are under a minute. So casting the bound spell, damaging the bound item, clearing all the enemies from the area, repairing it, and then dropping it. It can actually be really difficult to do that in the window given by the bound item spells. So if you are struggling to get everything done within the lifespan of the bound item spell, well, I was too. But I cooked up a little trick, as I was finding it impossible to damage the Bound Shield. I literally just stood and blocked hit after hit from this Minotaur, and the damn Bound Shield didn't even get a scratch. In hindsight though, I think it might have been due to the Apprentice block skill passive. Your shield or weapon no longer loses durability when you block an attack. Yeah, that could have been it. But whatever was going on, I rather fittingly conjured a solution, as we can actually damage our own item durability in the safety of our own home. But to do this, we will need 2 things. Firstly, we will need to head to the city of Skingrad. Once here, we will need to head into the Mages Guild Hall. Once inside, we will need to find this bloke, Vigor the Cautious. Speak to him and select Purchasing Spells. Then we'll need to buy the spell Corrode Weapon. Then in the same guild hall, we need to find and speak to Selinus Vicinus. Click Purchasing Spells, where we will need to buy the spell Corrode Armor. Once we've got those 2 spells, we will need to find and use an Altar of Spellmaking. You do get access to one during the Mages Guild questline, although from memory it's quite a ways into the questline, so it will take some time. Or we can use the one at Frostcrag Spire, which I'll be doing. So we need to head to, you guessed it, Frostcrag Spire, where you will need to have set up the Altar of Spellmaking. Now if you don't know how to do this, you've never heard of Frostcrag Spire, you don't know what spellmaking is, I highly recommend you watch the fast skill leveling video that I did, which is linked above in the cards, where I walk through every step of how to set up Frostcrag Spire and how to get the Altar of Spellmaking working. It only takes like a few minutes. But if you don't know how, you could very easily be lost, so check that out if you're in the dark. Anyway, once at Frostcrag Spire, head to the Altar of Spellmaking, where we will need to make 2 custom spells. A spell that disintegrates armor, and a spell that disintegrates weapons. The trick here is to make sure that we set the target to self, as we are wanting to damage our own items, which is not something you normally want. Now I didn't know it at the time of filming this, but changing the duration changes nothing. So just leave the duration at 1 and jack up the magnitude of the spell as high as you want to go. So once we've made our custom Disintegrate Weapon and Disintegrate Armor spells that we're going to cast on ourselves, all we need to do is simply cast our Bound Armor or Weapon spell, then cast the corresponding disintegration spell. I.e., if you use a Bound Dagger, you're going to need to disintegrate weapon. If you use a Bound Helmet, you're going to need to disintegrate armor. This will magically, well, literally magically, damage the durability of the bound items we just cast on ourselves. Once we've damaged them with our disintegration spells, we can just repair them, drop them on the ground, wait for the magical effect to wear off, and then pick them up, all in the safety and convenience of our very own home. However, the damn shield was still causing problems, although I did figure it out. For the shield to be damaged by this Disintegrate armor spell, you not only need to have the shield equipped, but you have to have the shield out. So you will need to be holding a one-handed weapon so that your shield is actually visibly being held by your character. Once this is the case, then you cast the Disintegrate armor spell that you made, and finally, this damn bound shield was able to be damaged. Then of course we just repair it, drop it on the ground, wait for the magical effect to wear off, and then pick it back up. This was all a bit of a faff to figure out, but I'm really hoping that my time sync saves you a whole lot of time. Oh, and yes, I think it is worth mentioning that these permanent bound items can be enchanted, so feel free to slap on whatever enchantment you wish. Now, before we move on to the very interesting stats of these items, there is one other little meta move I want to show you. As instead of waiting for the bound item spell effect to wear off your character, you can instead use a self-targeted dispel spell to remove the effect. If you do this, however, make sure the items have been damaged, repaired, and dropped before dispelling. If the bound items are still on you, the dispel will remove the effect and the items with it. However, once they have been damaged, repaired, dropped, effect worn off, and picked back up, you are safe to dispel as much as you want without losing your items. And the good news is, if you do lose any of these, you can get them back really easily again and again. But yes, if you want to be super meta, you can cast a bound spell, or you can find a Rune Stone, get your bound armor or bound weapon, use the self-disintegrate spells for weapons and armor, repair the bound items, drop them, dispel yourself, and then pick them back up, and you are done with the whole process in a few seconds. You do you, boo, give it a crack. So there we go, we are now the proud owners of the bound helmet, the bound cuirass, the bound boots, the bound greaves, the bound gauntlets, the bound shield, the bound dagger, the bound mace, the bound bow, the bound sword, and the bound axe. So now the real question, are they actually good? Well, let's take a look, as there is some weird stuff going on with these. Now, to make this as clean and as fair as I can, I have used console commands to increase all of my character's attributes to 100, along with all of the appropriate skills, so the blade skill, blunt, marksman, heavy armor, and light armor. This way we can get straight and solid stat comparisons. So firstly, in appearance, all of these bound items share the same models as their Daedric counterparts. Naturally, that's very cool, as Daedric is cool stuff. However, as I'm sure you've noticed, these bound items are fittingly bound in this purplish lightning aura, which personally I like. But I do understand there are some people who aren't too fond of the magical visuals on their weapons and armor. There's actually a medical term for that. It's called being wrong. Now, the bound armor, including the shield, has the exact same armor values as Daedric armor, which, FYI, if you didn't know, is the best base armor set in the game. So having matching armor ratings with Daedric is truly insane, especially considering that the big trade-off with Daedric armor is its weight. You get all of that protection at the cost of having to carry around all these items heavier than the Oculocon. A full set of Daedric armor in Oblivion weighs 165, whereas this bound armor weighs 0. Zilch. Nada. I mean, wow. By the 9. Much like podiums, these are products I can stand behind. Now, Daedric armor in Oblivion is classed as heavy armor, which, I mean, obviously, got any other news from 20 years ago, Camel? Well, I only bring this up because the bound armor is different. Despite having the exact same armor rating as Daedric armor and having the same appearance, only the bound cuirass and the bound greaves are classed as heavy armor. The bound helmet, the bound gauntlets, the bound boots, and the bound shield are all classed as light armor, which I personally like as I tend to wear a mix of heavy and light armor anyway. However, this could be a problem if you wanted to benefit from the light armor master perk. When wearing exclusively light armor, your protection is greatly increased. Although you could just swap out the bound cuirass and the bound greaves for some other light armor piece so you can get the boost. So now let's talk about the weapons. Unlike the armor, when compared to their Daedric counterparts, they are not the same. All of the bound weapons deal noticeably lower damage than the Daedric, with varying degrees of difference, and with one exception which we'll get to in a second. The bound axe deals 82% of the Daedric war axe's damage, the bound bow deals 75% of the Daedric bow's damage, the bound dagger deals about 70% of the Daedric dagger's damage, the bound mace deals about 88% of the Daedric mace's damage, and finally, the bound sword is coming in clutch, or I guess for Oblivion, it's coming in kvatch, as it actually deals about 111% of the Daedric Claymore's damage. Now, I don't want to call the bound sword the best two-handed sword of the game, but I couldn't find any two-handed swords on the wikis that dealt more damage. So overall, while everything but the bound sword deals less damage than their Daedric counterparts, the differences aren't too bad, and it would still rank most of these bound weapons as some very desirable items, especially considering the ease in which these bound weapons can be acquired at any time, all of which you get for free, and they weigh nothing. I mean, it's pretty good. But now let's move on to something that I noticed but could find absolutely no information on: the item health. Each item in Oblivion has an item health. While in-game item durability is shown as a percentage out of 100, of course, the items in the game files have their own health pool, which determines how much rough and tumble they can take before breaking. However, because these bound items are ephemeral conjurations from Oblivion, they aren't meant to have any item health, and therefore no item health is shown on any of the wikis or in any of the files that I could find. But we know that these bound items do have item health, as that's how we got them in the first place, by damaging them and then repairing them. Now, the reason I bring this up, while I was trying to damage the bound weapons so that I could repair them, I actually found it quite tough. The bound weapons seemed almost indestructible. Yet, I noticed the bound armor seemed to be from the Timu of Tamriel and would be at half durability after a short fight with a bear or two. Now, I really wanted to compare the bound items to the Daedric items in terms of item health, but given we have no hard stats from the files or the wikis, I couldn't figure out how. Until I did. The Disintegrate spells we worked with earlier. They're perfect. All I did was make 2 custom spells, Disintegrate Armor for 100 points and Disintegrate Weapon for 100 points. Then I made sure all of the bound items and all of the Daedric items were fully repaired, 100% durability. I then equipped them one at a time, casting the appropriate Disintegrate spell once. This way we know that each item has taken exactly 100 points of damage to their item health / durability. And while we won't get item health pulls from this, what we will get is a clear durability loss and the differences between them. And let me tell you, the results were very interesting. So firstly, the armor. As we can see, the Daedric armor has taken considerably less durability damage compared to the bound armor. The bound boots lost 13% durability, while the Daedric boots lost 8%. The bound Cuirass lost 7% durability, while the Daedric Cuirass lost 4%. The bound Gauntlets lost 13% durability, while the Daedric Gauntlets lost 8%. The bound Greaves lost 9% durability, while the Daedric Greaves lost 5%. The bound helmet lost 13% durability, while the Daedric helmet lost 8%, and finally the bound shield lost 9% durability, while the Daedric shield lost 5%. So overall, the bound armor seems to have an item health pool roughly 40% smaller than the Daedric armor, meaning the bound armor will break 40% faster, which to be fair is not the end of the world considering how many insane perks the bound armor brings, but 40% less item health is nothing to be swept under Mehrunes Dagon's rug. But to bring balance to the scales, let's see how the weapons fared. Well. Looks like the bound weapons left the Daedric weapons in the dirt, the hack dirt, as the bound axe lost 3% durability, while the Daedric war axe lost 13%. The bound bow lost 4% durability, while the Daedric bow lost a whopping 24%. The bound dagger lost 4% durability, while the Daedric dagger lost 16%. The bound mace lost 2% durability, while the Daedric mace lost 12%. And finally, the goat. The bound sword lost 3% durability, while the Daedric claymore lost 11%. Now there are some big variants in the differences there, but it's clear as Cyrodiil at noon. The bound weapons have magnitudes more item health than the Daedric weapons. so they will last much, much longer before breaking. So that was a fun little stat dive. The bound armor is as good as Daedric armor, but it has both heavy armor and light armor types, which you might like, you might not like that. But the item durability is notably worse. Yet the bound weapons do moderately less damage than the Daedric ones, but their item durability far exceeds that of the Daedric. So swings and roundabouts it seems. For every gain there is a loss, for every loss there is a gain. Except for the bound sword, of course, which has damage off the charts, and like 4 times the item health compared to its Daedric brother. Insane, Mike would love it. There you have it, young hero of Kvatch. You now know everything that I know about how to permanently get bound weapons and armor within Oblivion Remastered. Oh, except for this. There are allegedly spell tomes that will teach you the bound spells, and there are also allegedly scrolls that will let you cast one of these bound spells once. But other than one of the wikis saying that yes, these exist in the game somewhere, I couldn't find any evidence of them anywhere. I'm sure they do exist, but I don't think there's any specific locations, but keep an eye out, you might run across them. But that's why I didn't mention them earlier, because I don't know where to find them. So I hope you love your new bound weapons and armor, and you can now think about whether you want to use them or not now that you know how they weigh up to their Daedric counterparts. If you do have any other tips and tricks, please let me know down in the comments below. I'm sure there are plenty of hidden little things tucked away in Oblivion Remastered that I missed. I do hope you found this video helpful. I do hope you learned something new, or I just hope that you found it enjoyable. Now, if you did enjoy this video, please consider subscribing. There is plenty more Oblivion Remastered content coming. Check out the playlist link in the description. Down there you can also find all of my social media links. Be sure to check all of them out. And if you did enjoy this video and you would like to support the channel in a more personal way, feel free to leave a super thanks right here on YouTube, if that still exists. Be sure to check out the merch store, where there is a ton of Elder Scrolls related stuff, like this Camel Constellation Elder Scrolls blanket. And until next time, I've been Camel. I would like to thank you very much for watching, and I will see you very shortly in the next video. I'll see you there soon.